Thanks all for joining us. Obviously, the info's here, but I am Ashley Gomez from Influential. I have one coworker here, Matt, shout out. And I'm excited to be joined today with Crystal Venice Thomas. She is the VP and global brand leader for Hyatt Hotels, the lifestyle and luxury brands branch. So excited to have the conversation. We go way back. I think we first chatted at
Full on 24 hours.
yeah, 7 a.m. was like our first convo. So she's coming in hot from Miami from being there for work yesterday. So we're excited to have this conversation. I think, the best way to give a background of who you are and what you're doing there is probably to roll the tape.
Roll the tape.
What do you think?
We can roll the tape.
All right.
While I sit here and try to be comfortable.
I used to think minis were really stupid until I drove one. Now I have Fifi. In everything that I do, I think it just lends itself to getting a little bit of crystal sauce on it. My name is Crystal Venice Thomas. I am the VP and global brand leader of the lifestyle and luxury brands at Hyatt Hotels. I went to school for hospitality at Cornell and thought I was going to go into sales. And when I started to think about the different elements that made up the product that I was selling, I became more interested in the storytelling aspects of it, and then branding came up. My experience at Beats was incredible. I got to see marketing from a different lens. I got to see branding from a different lens, and I'm grateful for that time because now what I do today is informed by what I did at one of the best companies in the world. What I found most compelling about coming back to hospitality and specifically Hyatt was the opportunity to build a new brand. I'm a storyteller at heart, so the idea that I could really have a direct impact on the creation of a brand that would live out in the world, what? I love the cultural connection that we try to make with Thompson. I love the vibrancy and the sophisticated fun that we have with Andaz. I love the understated luxury that we're able to provide with Park. The accessible but cool content and DIY element of Caption by Hyatt. And I love that we're in the best locations with Hyatt Centric. And Alila just takes me to a place that I can't go mentally or physically with any of my other brands. So there's something about all of them that I love. I'm not a designer, but I do design experiences, and the fact that I have a small part in that is really inspiring to me.
Not weird at all watching yourself for 2 minutes
I
talk
think
about
we're
yourself.
all officially jealous of your gig and everywhere you get to go.
It's a fun gig.
But I mean, couldn't be a more perfect person to talk about storytelling, and it's clearly a passion for you. So the conversation today is all about storytelling and really, leading us to why is it so important for brands to be telling these stories, and specifically for you, why do you think it is so important that brands are storytelling and it's part of their large marketing tactic and plans?
Yeah, I think to me, I see it less of a tactic and more of a must-have that is just part of everything you do. Particularly from a brand perspective, how can people understand your brand and your offering, and particularly how they would see themselves within it if you don't give them something to connect with. And the foundation, and I know this is one of our questions too, of really thinking about brand marketing, brand experiences, is trying to get that emotional connection from the consumers that you serve. And for us at Hyatt, we have a mission that is, we care for people so they can be their best. And that's our internal mission and our external mission. And it sounds cheesy, right? Like when I joined Hyatt, I came from, the hustle and bustle of like a New York kind of energy, and then you come to a company like Hyatt, who's based in Chicago, so it has this kind of Midwestern feel about it, but also familial. It was started by the Pritzker family, and so you see a mission like that. We care for people so they can be their best. I'm like, child, please, what does that mean? But I can tell you, it's so incredibly real. The people there are so caring and so giving, and just really great collaborators. And I lead with that because that informs how we do our work, and it also informs how we try to connect with our guests, our owners, our colleagues, and our consumers. And what better way to do that than by telling the stories that, particularly in travel, right? Like, we spend a lot of time traveling or saving up for that one big trip or having that meaningful moment that serves as a core memory, whether it's a wedding, a family reunion, a vacation. Travel is at the center of a lot of experiences that we have as humans. And so there are so many opportunities to tell those stories so that folks can see themselves in the products that we're trying to offer.
Awesome. I mean, you really did answer the question about bringing that emotion out. I know we talked about it a lot. Something that we also had chatted about was really something that's near and dear to my heart, influencer marketing, right? And continuing to pull that emotion through individual experiences and through influencers that are then describing their experiences and sharing that with their followers. Curious for you to share with us really like how the digital transformation of media, social media, has played a really big impact, I would assume, on the hospitality, Hyatt specifically. How are you guys integrating influencers into your marketing plan?
I mean, we'd be crazy not to. The number one search engine for travel planning is TikTok. And when the executives at Hyatt hear that, they're like, what? How do you search TikTok? How do you search the TikTok? But we have to take these mediums seriously, and right behind that is Pinterest. People really use these digital tools and platforms to plan the search and see how people that they connect with emotionally within that space would, describe a place or a destination. I mean, you just shared that Thompson the Cape is one of your favorites, right?
It's hands down my favorite. And I was sharing with you too that I planned my entire summer vacation based on hotels that I was finding on TikTok and restaurants that I wanted to go to on TikTok and Instagram. I not that it's just because I work in influencer marketing, but it really, like, the emotion that I'm getting of like people they're showing their experiences really plays a huge role in like where I'm booking my stay. So.
Yeah, and I'd say that's a property in Thompson the Cape is in Cabo in Mexico, if you haven't been or heard of. Yeah. But they really do a great
friends
job
and family
of
discount.
Look, there is a friends and family. Let me see, my family is always texting for the hookup, I could tell you that. But they do a really good job of leaning into influencers and creators to showcase that. And more than that, brands use Thompson the Cape as a background for influencer content. So we're seeing a lot of that. And in fact, we were in a meeting the other day where I was thinking strategically, how can we even provide packages for brands that want to showcase their products in a meaningful way using our properties as a background. And when I say background, I mean really integrate it within it, but in a seamless way. And so for me as a brand leader, when I think about how to leverage those mediums, we think of social media not as in service to the brand, but it is the brand. That's where people are connecting with us most of the times anyway. And so we have to be strategic about how we're not only telling our stories through those channels, but ensuring that the way we're telling them resonates and is appropriate by platform. And every global brand campaign I do now, there's an extension that involves content creators. So for Andaz, for example, we just did a global rebrand, and of course we had the traditional media buy, but it was very important for us that we had, for a brand that is all about self-expression and personal identity, content creators tap into that campaign, which was called Be Like No One's Watching. So imagine an influencer or a content creator having a lot of fun with that. And we had and identified several of them around the world to showcase what it means to be all of who you are while you're traveling, and how Andaz is a facilitator in realizing that.
Did you want to roll? We have the Ondas.
No, I don't have that one. I wish
okay.
I did, but I'm going to send it to all of y'all so y'all can see it. It's
We
one of
have-
my favorite commercials.
We have follow-up coming out of this.
Yeah.
We do have something else to show, but did you want to show it now or want to show it in a bit? Okay. Leading to that, you're activating influencers. Hyatt as a whole is all over the world. You're all over the globe. How are you guys, as far as storytelling, really able to talk on a global scale, right? And keeping the brand consistent, but also allowing the storytelling and the voices in different regions and different areas, but making sure that you're keeping true to the Hyatt brand and your storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. One phrase we often use is like global perspective, but locally relevant, and local storytelling. Like, I can't, as much as you have a global story, it might not be as relevant when you go into a market like mainland China or in Europe and the many different cultures in Europe. And so we tap our regional teams to help us ensure that we're being consistent, but also relevant in each of those markets. And so, like the extension I was just talking about, we have a different content creator extension in every region. So there was an ASPAC version of my global brand campaign. There was an EME version of our global brand campaign. And there was a Latin America version that was through the lens of Ondas Mexico City. So we always want to make sure we're tapping the local creators and storytellers to, especially those that are connecting with our brand in a meaningful way, to tell those stories. And so another example of that for us is with Thompson Hotels. We have a platform called Culture Lives Here. And that is near and dear to my heart, too, because I'm very passionate about giving a platform for people to tell their stories through their craft. So not just if you're telling your stories online, but if you're a writer, if you're a dancer, if you're a musician, if you're an artist. And Thompson has always been about connecting its guests to what's culturally relevant and now, but more specifically to the culture of a destination. So this program really tapped amazing, what we call culture shifters, but tastemakers and artists to tell their story or showcase their craft, and provided a platform for them to showcase that experience in our hotels and our Thompsons around the country, and even now our Thompson in Madrid as we expand globally. So that's actually the next film that I'd show, just to kind of give you a sense of what that looked like last year.
Okay, let's roll it.
To be a culture shifter means to break it down in a way and then kind of rebuild it with a new configuration.
It embraces everybody from everywhere with no judgment.
One of the strongest things you can do as an artist is to maintain your own unique sense of identity.
So when we mention culture, we're talking about moving the needle.
Representation is big, especially, coming from where I come from.
When I think about my work, and not only on the dance floor, but off of the dance floor in the community, it is completely inspired by, influenced by culture.
You can take that passion and learn how to build layers to it that can then allow you to step into worlds you never imagined.
You move within the confines of those that came before you, while also looking at where it can go and not being afraid to do it.
It's really important for everybody to bring their own voice to culture, and I think that's what makes places unique.
It is about leaving something behind for the next person so that they can be inspired to leave something behind for the next person, and it continues on long after we're gone.
Clap. What I love about that is they were 8 completely different culture shifters, 4 cities, and we basically took these creatives, 2 in each city, and had them come together and collaborate on something that was relevant to the destination, that would create a nice cross collaboration between them from their different worlds. So none of them knew each other before collaborating. And the insight we got before we did that was creatives often have end up in like their own siloed world, right? Like if you're a writer or you're a musician, you can get caught down in this rabbit hole of just in your own room or studio and not getting an opportunity to be inspired by someone else. And so we took that insight and connected creatives to other people, not in their same craft, but maybe one that was complementing. So if you saw Atlanta, Cam Kirk, really dope photographer with Tunde, who's actually a record label owner of LVRN, if you know that, Summer Walker, and Division, and more. And they created a film about Atlanta. One of the biggest things was like, yo, we've been wanting to tell Atlanta stories. People have this misperception about Atlanta, but there's a lot of history here, a lot of creativity here, and we want to showcase that, particularly through the eyes of creatives that don't get the platform that other bigger names do in Atlanta. And so they created a 10-minute film, and we premiered it at the Thompson in Atlanta Buckhead. And so that was just, you know, providing a platform for others to tell their stories is just important to us as a brand, because we can connect the community to it, but also our guests can see the culture of a destination in a different light that they might not have if they didn't stay with us.
I to that point, like you're showing that you guys are doing specific events at your hotels specifically. Obviously, in the hotel industry, there's a lot of different. You work specifically on the luxury brand side. There's a lot of different luxury brands for people to select from. How do you find storytelling as a competitive advantage to the other hotels that, you know, people might be selecting from? If they're looking on Expedia, if they're looking between one or the other, how are you able in storytelling to feel like you have the competitive edge, and do you feel like it's necessary?
Absolutely. It's become, I mean, first of all, in hospitality especially, words like lifestyle means nothing to the consumer. Like when you hear lifestyle, usually to the consumer that means boutique, cool, trendy. Luxury, everybody thinks if they got a little marble or a little gold tint something, then that's luxury. But what we found through data, and then many of you may probably attest, is the experience is what makes the difference, right? Luxury is time. Luxury is the gift of time. Luxury is convenience. Luxury is customization. Those are the things that especially high net worth consumers care about. Like, make my life easier and make it meaningful. And so what we've done, particularly in the luxury space, is focused on how those experiences are different and can really have an impact on you beyond what you get anywhere else. So for a brand like Alila, which during the video, you asked me where Uluwatu is, it's in Bali. And this is a brand that is strongly connected to the communities that it's in, from a sustainability point of view, from a give back point of view within each of the villages and communities. And what we do is we give guests an opportunity to connect directly to those spaces. And so, for example, you can have a cooking class, but before that cooking class, there's an on-site garden that you can go through. You will walk with the chef through the garden. You'll go with him to the fish market to choose. This experience wasn't for me because we had to go to the fish market at 6 a.m. and Crystal is not a morning person. But for that guest that does that, it's really dope to see the local Balinese villagers go out to the fishing market, walking with the chef to do it. And then by noon or 1 o'clock that day, you're eating everything that you touch from that morning. And we tell that story through the experiences, and people see that and they'll come through and say, like, I just saw somebody did this on IG or on TikTok.
Yeah, I was going to say, where are you showing this and showcasing this? Is
on
it
our
mainly
website
across
as
social?
well. Yeah,
Okay.
like digital. So what's interesting when you look at luxury segmentation is like a lot of the luxury guests, they'll often look to our website still.
Okay.
That's still a place because they want to see what you can offer there before they invest in that experience. And so the way we've done our modules on our website is really through experiences is at the top of a brand like Alila, and we showcase those bespoke experiences that you can have, and then those track back to social tools. At the bottom of it, we might have a gallery that showcases people experiencing those things. So it depends on which property and how what the engagement looks like. But a property like Uluwatu, they have a lot of followers and engagement through Instagram and others too.
Got it. Curious then, as far as your competitors, are you constantly staying up to date and trying to see what they're doing in
They
the
keeping up
story?
with me, Ashley,
Okay, I was
okay?
gonna say, like, they're taking notes, obviously, clearly from you.
Yeah.
But I mean, from they're them telling their story. Are you keeping up with their IGs? What they're doing across TikTok and stuff, and what story they're telling to consumers.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important that, I'm a fan of this industry too. I'm a traveler, and when I travel, I don't always stay at Hyatt, wink, right? So I'm approaching my travel decisions in the same way that the guests who stay with us are. And so I'm not going to stay at, if I'm not going to stay at a Hyatt, I want to stay at a place that I'm emotionally connected with too. And so obviously I'm on all the distro lists, so I see the alerts when our competitors and fellow industry leaders are doing something new, and I congratulate them. Also, the hospitality industry is very small. All
Very
of my homies
connected.
are the leaders of the competitors. So we'll, if we're getting a new agency, I'm like, I heard you work with them. Do you like them? They're like, don't do it. or it's like, now we're my best friends are the same version of me at other hotels, right?
Yeah.
And so we keep up with each other, and we praise each other and send each other our work.
Cool. I think we have, one more, and then we're going to open it up for people to talk about. But this is really helpful for the audience out here as far as giving advice to leaders out there, brand leaders, and making storytelling like a strategic part of their marketing efforts. What would you say is your advice giving, these leaders out here what they should be doing from a storytelling standpoint for their brand?
Yeah, stay with me as I use this now overused word, but authenticity is really important.
Okay, yeah.
Like, you got to be real. You got to tell stuff that's real. And so, because even when I'm talking to my team and they're showing me work, I'm like, do you believe that? Because if you don't believe it, no one else will. And so anything that we're putting together and thinking about, I have another example. So even with Andaz, this Be Like No One's Watching campaign, it was really important to me in the casting process that we didn't cast actors and models. And we chose real people. We asked them, hey, if you were to travel and have a travel alter ego, what would it be? And through this campaign, we transformed them into what they wanted to be. So, for example, there was a man that we cast, and he was a longtime dancer, like Alvin Ailey level in Europe, and he became a teacher. And he was like, I've always wanted to be this eco-conscious rock star. And I was like, what the hell is that? He's like, well, I care about the environment, and, I love music, and I can't play music, so it'd be cool to be that. And so we did that. We turned one of our suites into, like, you'll see an organic wall in the room, and he's on a bed with a guitar in his hand, living his best life. And that felt real to him. And when we posted that, and I think he was in his early 50s, there were so many people who commented on Facebook and other places like, oh my God, I would totally do that. I would love the opportunity that I've always wanted to be a rock star or whatever. And so that felt real to people. And to be able to take a real person and showcase that transformation and how travel can have that impact on somebody it resonated even stronger. And so I think authenticity is everything, and I'm always looking at the content we have through that lens, even through representation as well, right? Like, if I see a casting document that doesn't have, a person of color or different size types and cultural backgrounds, I'm like, y'all need to come back. I want to reflect work that is reflective of the reality of the world we live in. And so we every day are pushing each other to ensure that representation is top, because again, travel especially, we have in the travel industry, in one hotel you can have 50 different cultures, 50 different languages, just in the back of house, right? And so think about the guests that are coming to you too, that you're then serving, that exchange. So really having that realness and mindfulness about how you tell those stories and connect to people. It has to be real.
Awesome. I think we're opening it up right now for questions. There is a mic out there.
Oh, I can see you now.
Now
Great.
I know it was
like talking to a black
very
void.
bright out here with the lights, but let's open it up.
Nice to meet you both. I'm Bibi. I'm Director of Partnerships at Dept, which is a full-service agency. Penny Pritzker is actually on our board. So we also don't always stay at Hyatt hotels. But I was curious, you mentioned something about when you have people in your network and you make decisions about agencies, you ask them, are they a good agency? Would you recommend them? I would love to understand how Hyatt decides what agencies to work with for the overall global brand strategy and what your overall selection process looks like. Do you have specific criteria that you look to make sure that they fit in with the culture you're trying to create, the kind of brand that you're trying to envision? And I'd love to understand a bit more about that process.
Hyatt's a big company. Every leader does it differently. I think we have the standard requirements and practices from a legal point of view as well, but I'll tell you how I choose agencies. For me, there's the first thing I look at when an agency reaches out to me or when I connect with them is the about us, here's who we are. And if I see a page that is full of very homogenous, I'd say, I'm just like, no thanks. How can you advise me if the people that are sitting around your table are ideating about things and they all look the same? That doesn't mean that they think the same, but there are certain experiences that informs a point of view, that if you don't have a diverse point of view in that room, then I don't know how we work together. And I'm very blunt about that. I've responded and said, hey, even a friend of mine who was like, hey, I'd love to work with their agency. I'm like, look, I shared this feedback with you, and then you got on the phone with me for a pitch, and nobody looked like me. And again, I'm not saying it has to be someone who looks like me, but I just have to have a diversity of not only thought but background as I select an agency. The second thing is I just want to work with cool people who can make good shit. And so, I'm sorry for cursing them. But like that's important to me, and we need to vibe. Like the vibe check for me is real. So the first thing is, what does your team look like? And the second thing is, how do we vibe? Because if we can vibe and we have a similar way of thinking and not necessarily way of thinking, but going about it, and we can dialogue and I can have a good even debate and push, then that to me is the entry point. And I know you could do good work. And if it's not to my point, I'm going to push you. And I pride myself on being a good client because I give very clear feedback. That's not like, oh, something's not right. I don't know what it is, but it's not quite there. Like, that's not me. I will tell you specifically, which is good and to an extent. And then some agencies are like, oh, y'all are not the typical clients we'd have. Y'all got more feedback than I thought. Yes, we do. We have a point of view. So having an agency that is comfortable with that, because there are some agencies that are like, look, we work with clients who have no idea what to do and they give us carte blanche. You're not going to get that from me. So those are kind of the three ways I look about it. Yeah, vibe check is real.
Hello there, Mark Sternberg from Brand Innovators. Thank you for joining us. Two-part question. What is your favorite Hyatt resort at the moment? And have you been to the new one in Deer Valley? There's a lot of buzz about that.
The Grand Hyatt, Deer Valley?
Yes.
It's not done yet, but it will be, I think, in October, in a few weeks. I haven't been, but I just talked about it in the Bahamas a couple days ago for ILTM. Favorite, you can't ask me who my favorite child is, right? Like, it depends on where I am, but I'd say one of my favorites is one that you just saw in the video and what I just referenced, the Alila Uluwatu in Bali. It is so incredibly immersive. The views there are awesome, and then the design is incredible. And it's one of those things where like sustainability and just the connection with the community is so high that you can't help but to feel emotionally connected to that brand and particularly to that destination. So probably Alila Bali Uluwatu for now.
And Innovators Bali. I'm kind of.
Oh, I support that completely.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
And if another kind of sidebar question.
Are you allowed to ask questions, Mark?
You know
Brandon?
what? We'll huddle afterwards. Here. Passing the baton here to Leonard.
Okay, I got one for you. I saw that you have this history with Beats and Jimmy Iovine and Luke, and so you've been immersed in sports in your past life. Are you doing anything in sports today? And what's your viewpoint on women's sports?
Okay, y'all coming at me at the end of this? Yeah. So my experience at Beats, I led the sports vertical on the brand side. So I was in charge of the NBA partnership and introduced the first product that was aligned with the NBA, which was Power Beats Pro. And yeah, I've been an athlete all my life, Division I athlete. I was recruited, all of that stuff. So sports is, when you ask me if I'm doing anything with it today, it's just a huge part of my life currently. My view on women's sports is sports and women are dope at it. And so, you know, when we talk about these different elements of, you know, the differences is, you know, competition is apt. I mean, when you watch it, it's so incredible, so exciting. And I'm glad it's finally getting its due and the visibility it should have had a long time ago.
All right, awesome. Thank you I mean,
You gotta eat.
Oh,
right.
I know. We're wrapping. Okay, perfect. We're handing the mic back over to David, but thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
For
Thank
the
you, guys.
opportunity. Thank you so much, Crystal.